Hello, everybody, and welcome to Xbox 2+1, -1, because Rand isn't here, but +2+1, some mathematical equation. Episode 37. That's a lot of numbers for one sentence. I'm your host, Jez Corden, the man without the million, and I am from WindowsCentral.com, and also one half of the illustrious Xbox 2 podcast, which is all about, you guessed it, Xbox. And I am joined with a very, very special guest this week. The illustrious, the infinite, the sexually magnetic Miles Dompier of ILLFONIC Games. Hello, Miles.
Damn, Jez coming in with the hype beast intro, dude. Your American accents, it's pretty good. I'm listening to you practice on Xbox 2, and you're really nailing it, man. I'm glad I can bring some sexual energy to Xbox 2+1.
Oh man, every British person can do an American accent because we all grow up watching American TV, right? So like it just happens. I think all British people end up with some kind of capacity for Americanisms, you know.
You can throw a little Southern twang on it, brother. Am I right?
Like it's weird though, because like if you tell me to perform an American accent, it always goes to a Southern kind of accent. You know, I don't know why, but like I can do like other American accents, like, but I can't do it like off the cuff or when like on command. Like I suppose I could kind of do like, no, it's always ends up Southern. I don't know why. It just always ends up Southern.
What are you trying to say about the God blessed United States of America, Jez?
God blessed United States of America. Yeah, I don't know. It's just the easiest one to do. I don't know why.
It's also very fun. I'm not from the South, so no shade to people from the South, but a Southern American accent is one of the all-time greats, I gotta say.
It's I suppose, like, you know, yo, dude, surf's up, dude. Like, you know, all sort of the really exaggerated kind of ones, like Mutant Ninja Turtles and shit, I suppose. I don't know. Oh, and I suppose the borderline racist sort of Italian New Yorker, which I'm not going to try and do. But you know,
you're not
all that kind of stuff.
You're not going to treat your audience to a Jez doing a New York,
like the
hey,
mafioso. Hey, I'm walking in. I don't know. But yeah, yeah, it's been a while. It's been a hot minute since we had you on the show. How long's it been? It's like been a few months at least, maybe something like that.
It's probably been at least half a year, right?
Mm.
Probably longer. I feel like time is just a blur. At this point in my life, I think, oh yeah, I was on XB2+1 not that long ago, and I looked like, oh, it's been like a year. Hot damn!
Yeah,
and every time I'm on here, I feel like Rand is too much of a coward to show up. You know, he's been dodging me because he can't handle the confrontation. He's not ready for the showdown. Well,
yeah,
that's okay.
It's Rand's going through some stuff at the moment. I don't know if you know, but like
yeah.
So you know, we kind of help. We kind of been flying solo while Rand gets things in order, but we'll be back to normal soon, and hopefully we can do the show, all three of us together in old school. Reconvene. It's kind of
the
like
Menage Xbox, dude. I pitched that a while back. We've never done it.
But me and you used to podcast back in the day on Windows Central when you are an excellent part of our team, which, you know, ever since we joined Future has been painfully mismanaged and under budget. But
in a different life, yeah, we were in the trenches together over at WindowsCentral.com, man.
Yeah,
you know, trying to build up the Windows Central gaming side of things, trying to build up the Windows Central Gaming YouTube channel, building out Xbox Chatter Days, which it warms my heart that I still have a bunch of people who like reply to my threads or DM me and say, "Hey, when are you going to bring back Xbox Chatter Days?" And I gotta say, I do miss having a weekly show. My bandwidth is stretched pretty thin at this point, and I keep telling myself, oh, I can find a way to bring it back. And then I look at my plate and say, don't do it. Don't do this to yourself, man.
Yeah, man. Like I'm the same way. Like I often think of like, man, I could do more streams and stuff. I could stream on Saturdays, but it's kind of like, what? I want my Saturdays now to just lie in bed and look at the ceiling kind of thing, and wonder what's going on in my life. But yeah, I don't know. You escaped the games media. Thank God for that, for you, and joined a very intriguing studio. Tell the people like a bit about your career trajectory for those who don't know.
Yeah, so if you're unfamiliar with who I am and my work, I started doing independent game blogging a long time ago, and I had like an old web comic slash game blog that I started because I love talking about video games. I followed the industry pretty regularly, and so I was doing that for a while, and getting opportunities from developers like Capcom to review games like Dragon's Dogma on Xbox 360.
Oh wow!
I think that was one of my like, oh damn, I can actually maybe do this thing, because I had Capcom mail me, mind you, mail me a review copy of Dragon's Dogma
Oh,
on
like a
Xbox
physical
360.
mail.
Yeah, this was back before digital codes were a thing. This was not to age or date myself, but yeah, this was a different world where you don't just hit somebody up on a PR and say, hey, can I get a code for this? No, they had to send you a physical package in order to do a review. So then I started looking outside of like personal space to companies I looked up to, platforms I was familiar with, and a fun little Easter egg in the Miles mythos and lore. I think it was iMore at the time was looking for a Pokemon related writer. And I was like, oh man, I love Pokemon. I think I got the chops for that. So I remember submitting my resume to Russell Hawley, who at the time was kind of overseeing a lot of the iMore Windows Central side of things. And I had a lot of video and audio production chops. I had done video work. I had done audio production for film and music. And I think you, Jez, saw that I had done some video work and like, do you want to try doing some social video content? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'm comfortable with that. So I started doing social video work for Windows Central. And then that transitioned into me kind of writing for Windows Central, and eventually being on camera and being, a voice of some kind over on Windows Central, talking about the Xbox ecosystem.
And what a voice.
And I love doing that. And throughout my time doing that, I met developers and I got a lot of insights into the games industry and what that looked like. And I've always had ambitions of, being closer to game creation. As a wee lad, I would make little 2D platformers and use rudimentary game engines to build out games. And so I knew longer term I wanted to be closer to that. And so, yeah, I started making some personal development moves that would position me to get a job at a game studio. And I had a pretty small list of teams I was looking at. And one of those teams was ILLFONIC, because I'm a big fan of horror games and I'm a big fan of multiplayer games, and ILLFONIC has done a lot of really fun multiplayer horror games. And so sent over an application there, went through a pretty intensive 4-round interview process. And yeah, I've been working there it'll be 3 years in August over at ILLFONIC.
That's fantastic. I mean, what, for those who don't know, what kind of, like, you mentioned like horror multiplayer games, like what kind of recent games have ILLFONIC made that you can share with the people that they should check out and try?
Yeah, so ILLFONIC's, I guess, claim to fame, what originally put that studio on the map for a lot of people, myself included, was Friday the 13th, the game. Because at the time when that game released, it was just this special moment where you got to basically immerse yourself in a virtual horror movie. And it was this great sandbox design. It was this really incredible party game. And it was like kind of one of the pioneers of the asymmetrical horror genre. And so we've seen other games in that space, Dead by Daylight, Texas Chainsaw. But for a lot of people, Friday the 13th was kind of the blueprint. They also went on to do Predator Hunting Grounds, which started as a PlayStation exclusive, is now on Xbox. We got the publishing rights back for that a few years ago, so we were able to publish that bad boy on Xbox, so I can get my beautiful chivis over there, which was awesome. They did Ghostbuster Spirits Unleashed, which I actually reviewed for Windows Central before I worked there. Gave it a 4 out of 5. Really loved that game. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the game, which is that's a weird one. It's one of my all-time favorite movies because it's such a niche, weird idea that they just committed to, and the game is very much that. And then we were working on Halloween, so that comes out in September, and Halloween that's a big one for our team. That's a big one for me. That's a big one for horror fans. For many people, that's considered like the horror IP. And so we get to do a single player and multiplayer game, which for us, this will be our first time that we're doing like a true single player story mode in addition to the asymmetrical multiplayer game. So very excited. And there's a lot of excitement for that game, which in a world where everyone's battling for eyes and attentions, I'm very grateful because there's just so much natural energy for this one.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm a big fan of Halloween first and foremost. So like, I'm pretty intrigued with that. I didn't know that it was going to have a single player campaign though. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, as Windows Central's changed over the years, I feel like my role has become a lot more corporate and budgets and spreadsheets. Like, it's so weird. Like, they hire you to do journalism, and then the only way to go up in the company is to do less journalism. It's so weird the way that works. But like, I end up missing out on lots of details about upcoming games these days and focus a lot more on the Xbox business side and the Xbox platform. I did not know Halloween had a single player component coming along because I'm not a huge fan of, as people here might know, I'm not a huge fan of I'm not a huge fan of like multiplayer games these days, especially not, player versus player kind of multiplayer games. So the idea of a single player campaign in that makes it sound very intriguing to me. You'll have to,
we have John Carpenter working with us as executive producer on that one. So it's,
oh wow,
you're essentially playing through the events of the original film. Like it's all based on 1978 Halloween, the OG, one of the all-timers, but you play the entire campaign from the perspective of Michael Myers, which is pretty dope. So you are just kind of unleashing hell upon Haddonfield as Michael Myers.
That sounds fantastic. You'll have to I'll have to email you off the show and we can like set up a preview or something like that in the future on Windows Central with what little audience we have left. but
yeah, hit me up.
Yeah, I will do, man. But this is like, we talk about the games media, but this is, and you touched on it a little bit, like the battle for eyeballs, right? The battle for eyeballs right now is a big talking point, not just in the games media, but also honestly, I feel like everything. I saw a comment from I can't remember who it was now. I think it was Kevin Hart or someone like that. I can't remember. It was a big Hollywood guy anyway. Someone from Hollywood was saying that like Hollywood's dying because Gen Z ain't watching anymore, and YouTubers are the new Hollywood celebrities and all this kind of stuff. And you've seen the WWE like try and get a lot of there's a lot of streamers.
Logan Paul of the world?
Yeah, Logan Paul, and I Show Speed now. He's training to be a wrestler. So it's like WWE's kind of identified that, and also in the new Odyssey movie from Christopher Nolan, like Travis Scott is gonna be part of it, and he's kind of like, he comes from that universe in a way. He's mainstream now, but he kind of came from that universe. Like, do you guys like internally, like at ILLFONIC, are you guys like thinking about these kind of things? Has it impacted you guys at all? Or is ILLFONIC like more leaning into that universe already? Like, because it does feel like there's a huge generational difference between what millennials and Gen X want out of games compared to what the younger gamers kind of want, I feel like.
Yeah, and I'll have to hit you with my disclaimer that all these opinions are my own, and I'm not speaking on behalf of ILLFONIC.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, there is this battle for eyeballs across all media. You're seeing it in advertising, you're seeing it in films, you're seeing it in TV shows, and that's why you're seeing way more television adaptations of existing movies versus the other way around. Like movies in particular are one where it's hard to get someone to sit down for 2 hours and do anything anymore. And so people are looking at ways at, how do you keep people engaged, knowing that there are, the way that content is distributed has fundamentally changed. Like for me on the social media side of things, I'm very aware of that. And so, we've altered our social media strategy to kind of cater to that audience to pretty impressive results. I'm very happy with the performance for the Halloween socials because we've built it with that in mind. The fact that people do have limited time and their attention spans are kind of being strained and pulled in all these different directions because there's a lot of cool new shiny things to look at. And so I think you really just need to, when it comes to making something worthwhile these days, you need to understand what you're trying to build, and you need to build for a specific audience versus trying to build for everyone. Because in this day and age, like there are so many niches and there are so many things to compete for time and energy that universal massive appeal is it's like a 1 in 1 million chance you're going to get that.
Yeah.
And so for us, like honing in on horror and honing into asymmetrical multiplayer, like I have seen the complaints from people about asymmetrical multiplayer. I know it's not for everyone, and everyone wants like a meaty 50-hour single player experience, but we love that space. We love playing games with each other, and we love playing games with friends. And so for us, even though it's not necessarily for every single player out there, we said, hey, we like this genre. We love horror, and we're going to keep playing in this space. And so we're building games for people who want to play that. And then we're also listening to player feedback, and we understand like the desire for single player content. And so we are trying to offer that where we can. And we're also trying to have some level of permanence for our games. So having a single player story mode for this, even if people move on from multiplayer down the road or whatever the case might be, there's always that component that kind of keeps this as a thing of value in your library, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that because I play World of Warcraft, right? One thing I've been thinking a lot about recently is how World of Warcraft hooks you when you're not playing it, or like other franchises hook you when you're not playing them. And I think one way they do that is through the story experience and the moments that stick with you. Like a lot of people say like about Diablo recently, they were saying like, the game doesn't start until endgame, right? And that a lot of people like skip through the story as fast as they can, like hardcore endgame ARPG players. But like in the future, like years down the line, I'm not going to remember that like, oh, once I got like a 4 Greater Affix Harlequin crest. I'm gonna remember those epic moments in the story. I'm gonna buy Diablo 5 because of how Diablo 4's story made me feel. It's almost like I think some companies overlook maybe the way that those kind of more traditional formulas can, I don't know, create franchises, I guess. But when you're working with Halloween, people already have that feeling because of how they felt from the movies, right? So I suppose it's kind of advantageous in a way. We're working with that kind of stuff. I do think like owning a niche is probably where a lot of people are gonna be moving towards in the future, and I really like the idea of ILLFONIC owning that segment and building it out because it is really interesting. And I do know people are really into it. Like Dead by Daylight, for example, is a pretty big. It's the big one, isn't it? It's like the top of the pile when it comes to.
I guess the for lack of a better comparison, it's the Fortnite of the asym horror space.
Yeah, there's I couldn't believe it. Like they got a lot of IP in that game now, like Silent Hill and all that kind of stuff. But I tell you, I've tried playing it. I find it so frustrating, man. When you sort of like, because people know how to exploit the engine, and you just sort of like, I'm there like as Pyramid Head or something, and the survivors are like strafing in a way that exploits the net code or something, and I just can't get them, and it's so frustrating. And I'm just like, you know what? This shit ain't for me.
Dead by Daylight has a very strong, passionate community, and they have a lot of really, really good players. So it's a game where if you're not playing regularly, it can be very hard to jump in and just play around, because you'll have those situations where, like you've experienced, you get rocked, dude, because there's just this fundamental skill gap. And I think that's a testament to the game that so many people spend so much time with it. But at a certain point, you kind of get diminishing returns when it comes to bringing in new players. Because as a new player trying to dive into something that has an established audience with players with thousands of hours, it can be a little rough.
Oh, it's true. Definitely true. But, like one of the, I suppose, in a way, it's going to always be relevant to you guys and other developers. And that's, the state of the video game platforms. And that's kind of like what we do on Xbox too. We talk about Xbox as a platform, and then, extending from that, the industry all up. And the industry all up feels a little bit, I want to say, stressed at the moment. And like, just to reinforce your disclaimer, you are not speaking on behalf of ILLFONIC, but just like, I'm curious what your opinion is on the general state of the industry, and I suppose like more broadly, the state of Xbox and the state of the platforms, because we had Sony's financials last week, and Nintendo's were also recent, and both companies are kind of, and this is the year of Grand Theft Auto, and both companies are warning investors to expect hardware declines this year. And this is the year of Grand Theft Auto, and a lot of people always focus on Xbox's hardware declines, but now you've got PlayStation itself warning that they're going to have hardware declines. So, we know about the memory route and, tariffs and all that kind of stuff, but what are you guys seeing like on the ground in the midst of this sort of, I suppose, platform chaos? Are you guys just sort of, just moving, carrying on, doing your own thing, or are you guys feeling some of the impacts of that, I suppose?
Yeah, like I think we are definitely going through a period of time where there's going to be a lot of adjustment, I guess, for lack of a better word, when it comes to how games are made and the types of games that are made, because we've kind of hit this threshold where the expectations from audiences are so high based on games that have come before. Like there are games that have set these ridiculously high expectations, but they're games that have cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And now people are much less inclined to give you hundreds of millions of dollars to make a game, because in this era where everyone's battling for attention, there's no more guarantees that you'll be able to recoup hundreds of millions of dollars every single time, even if your game is technically and fundamentally good or even great. And that makes people nervous. And so we've seen it, especially in the AAA space, how games are being greenlit, what kinds of games are being greenlit. I've always been an advocate for more sustainable game development, like games that have a more reasonable budget and maybe don't check every single box on the list, but they kind of really hone in on what they want to do and they do that thing well. And that's why I think there's been all these great indie standouts over the last few years. And I know we're very proud and grateful to be an independent developer and publisher, so we can kind of live in this space on our own terms, which is, I think, increasingly rare right now. And I know there's a lot of great independent developers who do require aid and assistance from publishers. So for us, that's very exciting, and it lets us kind of make the games that we would like to make. When I look at the other platforms, I think just more largely right now, there's just been a lot of financial disruption across all sectors, driven by, I mean, AI realistically has kind of, in a lot of ways, really damaged the consumer electronics side of the industry, and it's made hardware prices more expensive, which has in turn made people less inclined to buy the hardware. And so that's where a lot of this is coming from, in my opinion, is just the fact that things are more expensive, and that's being compounded by the fact that people also have less money to spend, because it's not just the gaming hardware that's more expensive. It's every facet of their lives being more expensive. So when you're looking at your monthly budget sheet between living expenses, medical expenses, food, and a $900 video game console, I think a lot more people right now, unfortunately, whether they want to or not, have to say, I just can't. And that is a bummer for the industry, and that will impact the industry negatively, I think.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's the whole global economy seems to be creaking right now, and I don't want to get political, but I think those of us who are more tuned in, we know the reasons why and the culprits, I suppose you could say. But it's I suppose things like gaming are lowest down on the ladder when it comes to people cutting their expenses. You can't eat gaming. You can't heat your house.
I know
with
gamers
gaming.
say we're eating good, but that's only metaphorically. That's not literally.
Yeah. Oh man, but yeah, it's tough times out there, man. Like, I suppose with gaming, you've kind of got a double whammy right now. Like, you've got like the tariffs popping off, which is one thing, and then you've got on I suppose Microsoft and Microsoft side and PlayStation side. They've also got like the memory stuff going on, and that is caused by the AI build out. I wrote in my newsletter this week that analysts, I was talking to some analysts about the memory situation, and they were saying like that it'll last through to 2028, which kind of screws up a lot of stuff. And like what we kind of sort of, it makes you wonder like how, because Sony and Nintendo, they have to stay in the game because it's their entire business. And I think this is why like Microsoft gets scrutinized, because Microsoft's kind of historically been a company that they're so big, and for them it's kind of like, well, if things aren't perfect, we will literally just cut and run. Like it's no thing to us. It's not a big deal to us to just ditch and cut and run. And I think that's why Microsoft gets more scrutinized. Like, as an Xbox fan and not as a representative of ILLFONIC, like how have you been feeling about Xbox's decisions and trajectory over the last few years? Like, we haven't talked about it that much together, and I'm interested in your thoughts specifically on Xbox. As the former lead of Xbox Chatter Days, and evidently an Xbox fan. You like your Chivos much like the rest of us, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm proud to say that I play primarily on Xbox. Like, I have a Switch, I have a PlayStation, I have a PC, but I would consider my primary platform as Xbox. It's where I play most of my games. It's where most of my friends play their games. I've been invested in this ecosystem for a very long time. I mean,
yeah,
pretty much OG Xbox. Like, that's been my primary platform. So it's, as someone who's not podcasting regularly and not being as part of the conversations, it's something my friends and I still talk about, because over the last few years, I've had some of my like lifelong, long-term friends, Xbox guys, like, I hate to say it, pivot to PlayStation. They've looked at Xbox's trajectory. They looked at how Xbox was doing its multi-platform approach. They looked at how Xbox was seemingly not investing in the console or even mentioning the console in any meaningful capacity. And they said, you know what? I don't know that I trust this platform's future. And more than that, I don't like the decisions they've been making. So I'm going to start buying more games on other platforms like PlayStation or Nintendo. And, you know, as much as I want to be a Xbox loyalist and diehard, there is logic there. You can't really fault someone for making that choice when we look at the decisions that were made by Xbox.
Yeah.
I have a lot of like personal friends who work at Xbox, and so like I've always trusted that there are people behind the scenes working hard to do the right thing and make the right decisions. And I've kind of kept my faith in that. And I've also publicly, when I was on Xbox Chatterdays, said that exclusives fundamentally are designed to benefit the platform and not necessarily the customer. So I wasn't really that against a potential shift into Xbox going multi-platform. You can listen to Xbox Chatterdays. I'm on the record there. I'm not going to try to reverse course on that front. But my biggest question mark with all of this, like Xbox going to PC, Xbox going multi-platform, is what are you offering with your ecosystem then that will make someone buy a game there? And that's been the biggest question mark for me, is like, what if you're not going to do exclusive content, what exactly is the draw to your platform? And you know, there's been benefits like Xbox Play Anywhere, and there are these other little like marketing tent poles we can point to, but just from a general rudimentary sense and a conversation piece, like those impacts need to be pretty massive. So I am kind of reinvigorated by the recent changes from the recent messaging from Xbox, and the fact that it seems like they understand, or are at least publicly acknowledging the fact that, okay, there is power in community. There is power in delivering features or games that only exist on your platform. And I know Xbox is trying to figure out how to balance that reality, balance the reality that not everyone can afford the hardware into their equation with things like cloud. But I think they also have understood that people like me, the core players who are going to give you money repeatedly over and over, don't really care that much about the cloud experience. Like cloud gaming for the most part isn't the ideal way to play a game. And people who are invested in the games industry and buy games probably want the best way to play a game. And that has not been cloud. So I think, well, that is a nice option, especially for areas where that is the cheapest and most accessible way to access games. I think that's great. But again, my question is, if you're catering to that audience who is very casual, how much money do you make on that versus how much money you're spending on the infrastructure to support that? Because chances are that person's probably not, by design, not giving you much money.
Yeah. It's a tough problem. And, you know, like people often talk about the cloud as a way to fix this stuff, but like the cloud is expensive too, you know, and the cloud needs memory as well. And this is like one of the issues Microsoft has. Like one of the things that has happened to me recently, investigating some of this stuff, like I've been given, I was passed some documents recently, which gave me a sort of a more granular look at the situation that Xbox is in. And some of that stuff I don't want to share because I feel like I might get in legal trouble.
Don't get yourself in legal trouble on here, all right?
But some of this stuff that I've received is like stuff that could potentially move the share price, I feel like. So I won't be sharing some of this stuff, but to protect my own ass. But yeah, you know, this is like, you know, it's journalism, you know, it's kind of. But anyways, I digress. Like the situation, like with regards to the memory stuff, is a lot more dire than I think a lot of people realize. And I think you can sense this a bit more when you look at what Sony and some of, you know, the competitors are kind of talking about here. Like when they're talking about things like, you know, we expect hardware to decline this year. You know, like this is PlayStation, you know, and you look on Twitter and you look at what fanboys are saying, like PlayStation's invincible. You know, this is what the fanboys lead us to believe. That PlayStation is just unbeatable, right? But in the year of Grand Theft Auto, PlayStation's saying that hardware sales will be down. And that is not necessarily due to decreased demand. That's because they physically can't meet demand because there's no memory. You know, there's no memory. And some of you guys will know this, and you might know this as well, Miles, but Microsoft's kind of structured like a company that thinks quarterly. They've historically thought quarterly, for better or worse, mostly worse. And that's just the way their finance team kind of set things up. You know, and that's kind of like, it's been their policy to do things on a quarterly basis. And when you buy in memory on a quarterly basis, you run out of memory more quickly. And I don't know if you saw, Miles, because I know you're a Nintendo fan as well, but Nintendo is putting up their prices in later this year, right? At a very specific time. And, you know, to me, that says that's when their contract for memory runs out. And the new contract they've negotiated represents the increased price that is being passed on to consumers, essentially. So when I look at some of the decisions Microsoft's made over the last couple of years, which, you know, frankly, were communicated pretty poorly, you know, when it's like moving to exclusives, moving away from exclusives, rather, and also, you know, increasing the price of the box and all that kind of thing. Like, a lot of this stuff revolved around Microsoft's short-term thinking or short-term financial fiscal policies, where they bought memory on the basis of a quarterly contract rather than an annual contract, right? And then Microsoft's fallen really on the wrong side of that universe, I think. But that's not a thing like the customer should have to worry about and consider. Like, Microsoft kind of put themselves in this situation, and, you know, and it's not just a Microsoft, it's not just an Xbox thing either. Like, we've seen these issues with Windows itself right now, and we've seen these issues with like other parts of the business. It's Microsoft kind of put themselves in a hole, and it's kind of funny because they've been on the frontier of artificial intelligence and the artificial intelligence build out. You would have thought they'd have seen this coming, but apparently they didn't.
It's what was most baffling to me about the decisions that Xbox has made is they were seemingly pivoting away from console hardware right before what is and probably will be the biggest console game of all time with Grand Theft Auto. And just from a business standpoint, we hear these executives talk about how they understand that people want to carry their libraries over. People understand like the importance of these platforms and acknowledge that there's a lot of people still playing on Xbox One right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were seemingly going to just put themselves in a situation where their direct competitor was going to basically convert every single person who had an Xbox One was like primed to just go buy a PlayStation, because PlayStation was going to be in stock. It was probably going to be a better price. It was going to have more excitement. It was going to have the marketing deal. And it just made no sense whatsoever from a platform standpoint that they would actively pivot away, actively build out messaging that downplays their console right before the biggest console game of all time. And now, you know, going into this year, they've definitely, I think, acknowledged and adjusted internally that, okay, that was a fundamental critical error on our part, and we need to make sure that this console is appealing and exciting, especially for people who play on this ecosystem every day. We need and want them to upgrade to the Xbox hardware for not just Grand Theft Auto, but all the other great first-party Xbox games that are coming. But you look at that decision, and for me, that was always the most frustrating, is how and why was that ever considered on the timeline for a company on the size and scale of Microsoft?
Yeah, it's maddening. It's really, really maddening. But, you know, it does feel like there's been a change of thinking about how Microsoft in general shows up. There's this whole Windows K2 thing right now going on. I don't know if you read about that, but basically they've commissioned a task force internally to make Windows better, which, you know, it's probably something they should have done before. But
people like Linux. There's a lot of good buzz for Linux right now.
Yeah, and Google just announced its new Android PC line. I don't know if you saw that. Like, that's going to be a thing. Android has also got its own PC game compatibility layer, which is probably a threat to Windows too. You know, and everyone's desperately looking for Windows alternatives because they just feel like, well, Microsoft's all in on AI and telemetry, and they don't actually care about the user anymore. Like, in this universe where there's so much choice now, there is so much choice, people like are more willing to move to other things, I think, more than ever, you know. And as soon as a platform shows up which can basically do the vast majority of what Windows can do, even if it's slightly worse, I feel like people will move on just to feel like they're working with a company that will hear them, I guess. But I don't know. It's a lot of it's pie in the sky.
I think they understand there's loyalty with Xbox. Like, there are a lot of Xbox fans who've stuck through some of the rough patches and the turbulent messaging. But no shade, but I don't think there's a lot of Windows loyalists. If there was something that was like easy to access and cheaper and widely available and supported their apps and programs, I think people would bounce pretty fast. And I think they understand that, which is to your point, why they're whipping up this task force. Say, hold on, we need to like make sure people understand that Windows is the place to be. We need to make sure people understand that Windows is built for them. So yeah, they're looking at the importance of community, and I think right now more than ever that community is fundamental to a business.
I really agree. You know, they could learn a lot from listening to game devs, I think, who've built this stuff out. People want to feel connected to the stuff that they own, I think, more than ever. And there are tech companies out there which have really leaned into that. I think Apple's one of them, you know. And
Apple's
Google,
a great community.
Yeah, and Google's increasingly doing it. Like they do an annual showcase event for Android now called the Android Show. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, Microsoft Build used to be this. And then when Satya came on board, he was like, oh, Build's not for consumers anymore, it's just for devs. But like, he forgets that like devs are consumers too. You know, like devs want to be excited about the product as well. And they want to be excited about the things that consumers are excited about. And if consumers aren't excited about your platform, like, why would they want to build for it? Like, I really like Satya's I've got a lot of thoughts about Satya's tenure at Microsoft, but I don't know. Let's not turn it into a show all about that. I don't know.
But we hear it all the time when it comes to Xbox fans and the lack of Japanese game support on Xbox. There's all these examples of games from Japan, from franchises that people love, not coming to the platform. And then recently we have developers coming out from Japan and saying, like, it's not that we don't want to do this necessarily. It's just that, like, we can't even buy an Xbox in Japan if we wanted to. So it's like, why are we going to build for a platform that's not supported where I live and where I play? And you can't, you can't fault someone for feeling that way when it's not a slight against fans. It's just kind of the reality of the area. And again, it's the onus is on Microsoft and Xbox to address that with platform features, with incentives to get people to build for the platform. And listening to that community, especially the people who create for that community, is it'll go a long way.
Yeah, it sure has. We'll see if they can actually execute some of that stuff. The problem is, like, for me, is Microsoft had a history of broken promises now. I distinctly remember, like this was years ago now, maybe 5 years ago. Satya Nadella said in an interview he wants people to go from using Windows to loving Windows, right? And he said that 5 years ago. So it felt like, does he understand this shit, or was he just saying words? You know, was he just saying words? Was he serious about any of that stuff? Because the actions since that time betray a culture of breaking promises to me. You know, I don't know, but yeah. It's a tough universe. I couldn't run a tech company, I don't think.
No, again, like I'm very grateful that I don't have to manage the books for a company like Microsoft, because I also understand like the business necessities are essential. And I know Microsoft has gotten a lot of heat for laying people off in mass recently. And for me, ideally, I want companies to make decisions where that's not the outcome. That's because again, that feels like you're punishing really the wrong people.
Definitely. It's a lot of what Microsoft's doing right now seems to revolve around AI infrastructure. It's like capital expenditure focusing literally on concrete. Like Microsoft's buying concrete by the bucket load to the end of building out this AI arms race. And Google's kind of winning, Google's kind of in this situation where they've got a ton of cash flow and they're not sort of like trying to sort of half-heartedly do a lot of different things. And I think that's kind of the pressure that I think Microsoft's financial department has put on Xbox in recent years. Has been like, we spent all this money on you guys with ABK, like you've got to prove that all this shit was worth it, I suppose. Because now look, we don't have all this cash flow for our AI bullshit, our cat memes and that kind of stuff. But it does seem like some of the AI hype is dying down a bit, and hopefully, potentially, coalescing around the few actually semi-okay use cases for it, which is kind of like code autocomplete. That basically seems like the only real use for it, to be honest, is like code autocomplete. Like, just today at Windows Central, actually, we wanted a new website feature, and in order to get that, we either had to go to the engineering team or Dan asked artificial intelligence to code it for him, which is pretty fantastic that that's even possible. Anyway, I digress. It's there's a lot of complexity, a lot of moving parts going on right now in the game industry, but let's talk about something a little bit more positive, Miles. I want to know what games you've been playing recently. What games have you been loving recently? Because we haven't talked games for a while.
Yeah. Let's talk some games. And again, this first game I'm going to bring up, if you've been on X.com recently, you're probably wondering why the conversations have been so dramatic. But I finished a game over the weekend called Mixtape.
Oh.
From the developer of The Artful Escape and published by Annapurna Interactive. It's a 90s coming of age story about this group of three friends on their last night together before the main protagonist heads to New York to try to make it as a music supervisor. She has some grand ambition of meeting somebody in Hollywood, or not Hollywood, but New York, and kind of and making it in the big times. And so it's a pretty simple story, but the presentation is very over the top and kind of much like The Artful Escape finds this really clever way of taking everyday moments and making them feel grand and extravagant. I compare it to What Remains of Edith Finch in terms of the gameplay. So, for some people it is, I guess, a walking sim in some ways, but it has these really cool mini games sprinkled throughout that a lot of them, in my opinion, were very fun, like just skateboarding down the hill and doing like flip tricks and grab tricks. That was fun. There was this like skipping stones mini game that I spent probably like 30 minutes on trying to get all the little like objects. Because every time you throw a rock, if it hits something, you get this fun little animation. You hit a boat, the boat drives off. There were these like hidden garden gnomes that would magically appear throughout the landscape. So yeah, overall, I really did love that game. It was probably about 3 hours long, so it's pretty short. I thought it was genuinely funny. And that's, for me, comedy is one of the hardest things to do in a video game.
Oh, definitely.
It is the hardest feeling to invoke because it's so easy for it to
I'm off cringe.
So yeah, I hate using the word. I was trying not to use the word cringe, but yes, it's so easy for it to wander into the realm of cringe. And I know some people think the game's boring. I'll be honest. When it was revealed at, I think it was an Xbox show.
Yeah, it was an Xbox thing. Yeah.
I wrote it off because I actually don't really like Life is Strange.
Oh, you don't?
I understand why people do, but that I've tried a few of them. It hasn't been a series that I've loved because as an older man, I'm very particular about my coming of age stories because the teenage angst to me, as someone who was an angsty teen, is just so embarrassing because of the way that we conflate all of these super small moments because we have no perspective on what life is and what consequences are and the weight of real decisions. So as someone who's confidently an adult, sometimes when I play a coming of age story, I'm like, man, I can see myself. I can see myself in this world and not in a good way. And it makes me embarrassed for myself. So yeah. So when this was announced, I was like, okay, I'm not that hyped. But again, I succumbed to like a lot of people that I trust and know personally really loved it. So a lot of reviews came out and reviews from people that I do trust and we have similar tastes. And it made me kind of reevaluate and say, okay, if this game truly is 3 hours long and it's on Xbox Game Pass, I'm going to give it a shot and see how I feel. So I went in, kind of pessimistic, honestly, thinking, I don't think I'm going to connect with this one, but there are some memba berries in terms of, look at this. Look at this device from your childhood. Remember this thing? Remember this thing? And again, if you don't like that, that's fine. I will say, I think all of us are biased and we all succumb to nostalgia in some way, shape, or form. So it's easy to say like, oh, this isn't nostalgic to me, so it's shit. But if this was World of Warcraft, for example, for Jez, then he'd be eating up all the memba berries.
Yeah, true that.
But that being said, I really did love it. And the conversations and the weird kind of negative energy that only exists on X.com surrounding that game was kind of jarring because I posted something pretty benign, like on the weekend I played it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is fun. I like this game. It's funny, it's charming, it's a few other things. I was harassed on X by a bunch of people for just saying I like this game.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like, what?
It's ridiculous,
just a chill post of me showing a little clip of me liking this game, and then that's when I learned that there's like this movement that's against this game. That's weird to me. Okay.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, I guess. I've kind of avoided it. Like a lot of the, you speak about like people you trust, just recommending games and that kind of stuff. Like obviously a lot of the people that I speak to about games are British, right? And I haven't found a Brit that really the game resonated with so far. And I think like probably because the British millennial teenage experience, at least where I live, is far removed from probably what's being represented in this game. So it does sound like, grifters aside who will never play it. It does sound like it's a game that's potentially not for everyone, but I suppose like because I think the game's media kind of skews a little bit towards, Americans who probably grew up in suburban environments, probably had that childhood, millennials. It's probably like the review scores probably skewed a bit higher than potentially they otherwise might have done. But I just the amount of grift and the amount of clickbait and the amount of how dare they make a video game? Like it's so exhausting, Like if it's me, it's just like, and I say this about console war as well. Like there are forums out there which are dedicated to just hating Xbox all day, every day. All they do is talk about how bad Xbox is and how dumb the fans are for liking Xbox and all that kind of shit. Like if it's me, like when I don't like something, I don't let it dominate my life. I just move on. I feel like that crazy. Is that not the same way to react to things? I don't know. What's happened to society?
I've established a healthy way to engage with social media, and I'm not here to psychoanalyze anyone, but I think right now more than ever, things are very contentious, just politically, globally. And a lot of us are angry or upset about uh, things in our lives that we feel that we don't have control over.
Mm.
It's made us resentful of the people around us, the institutions above us, and anyone we perceive as the other or the enemy. Um, so one thing that's easily controllable, one thing you can guarantee control over in your life is not liking something. So I think there's a lot of people who are redirecting anger and resentment from external factors towards things like video games because one, we're all very passionate about games and we connect to games. And two, it's something that they can control. So some healthy, cheesy, evergreen advice I can give to people as someone who has worked like professionally in social media and has had to like come to grips with those moments where you see a really stupid take that just enrages you.
Mm.
If your first instinct when you see a post from someone sharing something that they like or that brings them joy is to argue or be upset, I think you really truly in that moment need to give yourself a couple seconds, get offline and reflect as to why you feel that way. Because people are exploiting your anger. We're seeing content creators, we're seeing people on these social media platforms, we're seeing the social media platforms themselves exploit your emotions for their gain. And I think that's kind of sad that we're essentially turning against each other over something as benign as liking a video game.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. It is absolutely nuts. I've like, back in the day, like I used to be someone who'd tweet every single thought, and Rand's joked about this. I used to tweet all day, every day. I'd do like maybe 10 to 30 posts a day on Twitter. These days I do like maybe, one or two a day, maybe retweet some articles from an essential account, because it is so painful looking at the For You page, and the algorithm's like, it's so reactive these days. Like if you engage with like a random post, the algorithm assumes you want to see tons of that. So like if I get somehow tricked into liking a political post, or I click on one by accident or something like that, that'll just become your whole feed for like a week. And this isn't unique to X either. It's Instagram, it's to some degree YouTube Shorts, it is it kind of just sucks the way that's all sort of panned out. But it's like you say, people are being exploited, and I think one day future generations and future legislators, hopefully, who figure this out, and maybe this is probably naive of me, someone comes to power who perhaps resists corruption and being on the take, I suppose, and they actually like do something positive for the world. I think Zuckerberg ends up in prison.
Oh damn!
I think there's a lot of court cases going on right now, and there's a lot of scrutiny being leveraged against what a lot of these companies like Facebook. They knew the damage they were doing to society. They had their own analyses, talk about this shit. They had their own psychologists, and they're like, these are the negative impacts our platforms are having on kids and teenagers and society at large. And they had these analyses, and they just did nothing with them. They chose profit, And I think that there'll be a reckoning. I hope to God there will be a reckoning. It reminds me of that Simpsons episode where Lisa goes to the Capitol, and she's there for like a contest, or she has to like she's won some kind of contest, and she's going to like read a patriotic essay about how great America is. But while she's there, she sees some congressman doing some kind of shady bribe back alley deal, brown paper bag with money in, and cut down a forest or something like that, and she becomes disillusioned. And what she does is she writes like an unpatriotic replacement essay about how much America sucks and it's a cesspool and all this kind of stuff. But like it ends on a positive note. I don't know if anyone remembers this episode, but it ends on a positive note, and it shows like the wheels of democracy and the Justice Department getting involved, and then that congressman gets done for insider trading, and it's like, oh, actually the system does work, and it does it in a kind of like it's a very satirical kind of way, and I think it's very tongue in cheek, because I think like it doesn't really happen that way. I think there's a part where the guy goes, "Congressman, a little girl's become disillusioned with democracy," and it's like, show me where. And then like he's making all these phone calls to the FBI and shit like that, So it's not entirely serious, but when I was a little kid watching that episode, I was like, maybe things will be okay, and maybe they will. Like I always think of that episode when it comes to like, these guys are getting away with grift and all that kind of stuff. I want to believe that the Zuckerbergs and Altmans of the world they know they're destroying society for profit. I want to believe that karma will come for these people someday, but maybe I'm naive. I don't know. But I don't know.
You got to keep the hope alive, all right?
I got to keep the hope alive. I feel like
it gets us get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. I feel like whenever we podcast, it becomes very deep.
I do. I know. Why you got to make it so heavy, bro?
I don't know. It's just the way I roll, man. Just the way I roll. But you know what?
But yeah. So,
sorry, go on.
One final thing on that is just, I think we all need to be a little bit better about if we see a really bad take on these social media platforms, we just don't touch it, please. Because as soon as you do, your entire feed is that, and then the algorithm is trying to trick you into believing that everyone is thinking this way, when especially X.com is not the reality.
Yeah, it's true, man. We could all do something with that. But anyways, Mars, if you would indulge me, my friend. We didn't do a podcast last week because Rand's dealing with a lot of shit at the moment. But we do have a Patreon Q&A thread with some questions from the audience. Would you be willing to indulge me with some responses to our audience and play the role of Rand for me for a few minutes?
Yeah, let me role play Rand. Oh, Nintendo sucks, dude. Nintendo is so dumb. I love I put 5,000 hours in Marathon. I got nothing else going on.
I think that the Nintendo sucks part is me. I will say this though, the Star Fox remake really has me like, do I buy a Switch now? And this is the power of exclusives. Like, I rag on Nintendo all the time. I hate Mario and all this kind of shit. But I'm looking at that Star Fox reboot and I'm like, fucking damn, they've got me. Those bastards, they've got me. It was called Lilac Wars in the UK. For some reason, it wasn't called Star Fox 64. It was called Lilac Wars. And I fucking loved that game. I loved that game so much. And I think they're gonna get me, I think they're gonna get me.
Switch 2 it's a great piece of hardware. I love my Switch 2. I'll say that.
Yeah, man. I think they've got me, bro. I think they got me. And it kind of like with the price increase too, I kind of like thinking I better get in before they increase the price as well,
That's right. Hey, you want to play Star Fox, Jez? Well, don't worry. As long as you buy that in July before we increase the price in September, the game's basically free.
Oh, I hate them. Bastards. But dude, why do you have to say that? That logic is awful and true. No, it's just like, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna buy the damn Switch and what's his name? Oh man, what's his name? Off the top of my head. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm really tired. I'm sorry. The Nintendo guy from our audience. Oh no, it's gonna really bug me. Everyone in chat will remember who I'm talking about. There's a lovely chap from our audience who I know him really well. I just can't think of. Do you ever get that where you just can't think of a word?
Yeah, and, your just brain is not. Those neurons are not firing.
They're not firing right now. I'm a bit tired, but Yeah, got a Nintendo fan from our community, and he's gonna clown me if I buy a Switch. I know he's gonna clown me, but I gotta do it for Star Fox. I think, man. I think I'm gonna do it. But anyways, let's get into some Patreon Q&As. So you're gonna have to play the role of Rand here. Do you read books, Miles?
I am reading a book right now.
Oh,
I've been
really?
trying to get better about reading. I'm probably not on Rand's level, but I am
no
reading.
one's on Rand's level. No one's on Rand's level. Well, I will, in that case, I will tell you about this Q&A post. Bear with me one moment. So yeah, this is from Rave Demos. Hello, Jez. Oh no, it's a question to me actually. So I'm gonna replace the Rand with Miles for this one. If you could have Miles read any book and you knew it with absolute certainty that magically he was going to enjoy it, love it even, topic doesn't matter. You could pick a book about mayonnaise and he'd come out the other side, a die-hard mayo evangelical. The only rule, Jez, going to make him genuinely love it. What book or type of book would you pick? Miles, this is all happening without your knowledge, and you will never know that the magical book or your subsequent fandom. Sorry, not sorry. Happy Friday. So I've got to pick something that ruins your life, basically.
So yeah, you're basically you're corrupting my mind without me knowing.
I'm corrupting the mind.
Subconsciously, you're deciding what I enjoy now.
That is interesting. That's a really intriguing and somewhat worryingly diabolical question there from what book do I? You know what? I think it's gonna have to be a World of Warcraft book. I think I'm gonna have to get Miles into World of Warcraft.
Oh no! Oh no!
Yeah. So I'm sorry, dude. It looks
2 weeks from now, I wake up and say, I'm gonna reinstall WoW. You know what? I haven't played WoW in a while.
Yeah, so I suppose it'd be the World of Warcraft Chronicle, the lore book about World of Warcraft, which is a huge book. And then yeah, I suppose that's what we're gonna do.
All right.
Oh man.
And the rest of my life has been decided. I have 20,000 hours of WoW to catch up on.
Yep. I think that's what I do. And that's also what I do for Rand. So you can imagine Rand's reaction when I force him into being a World of Warcraft fanboy. Next question is from Pat Rock. We've got 12 questions to get through, by the way. So we'll try and run through them quickly because Miles has a real job and has to go to work. Pat Rock says, I've heard you all talk about how Xbox needs to stop apologizing for existence. And when or if exclusives come, they need to do exactly that. Seems like in the past decade, having exclusives was almost an apology for the inconvenience. They need to market like hell, not apologize, hunker down. That's the only way it will work. Like Doctor Strange in Infinity War. There are 1,000 endings, but only one where Xbox wins. They already have the Infinity Stones. Now they just have to snap. So that was less that was less of a question and more of a strong statement there from Pat Rock. Interesting. I agree completely that they absolutely do need to market and lock in, but it's also like it's also kind of like there's no memory, you know. And I think like I know that you've read my newsletter about the memory situation. I think there will be a time where Xbox needs to go ham on not only having a ton of memory, a ton of product, and a ton of marketing for this shit, but it's you know, it's probably not going to be until 2028. So I suppose for me, the play would be ultimately maybe delay Helix to 2028. Make sure you've got a mountain of stock. Make sure you've got a Halo 6 primed and ready. Well, it would be Halo 7 at that point, Halo 7, whatever. Primed and ready to go. Make it exclusive. You know, make Elder Scrolls 6 exclusive launch title to Helix and then market the shit out of it. That's kind of what I would do to, you know, revive Xbox.
Even if they're scared to go full forever exclusives, I think a really I would say, safe interim decision that they could make is they could get some branding and some marketing that says play first on Xbox, and they make it so there's parity between the Xbox platform on PC and console. They don't ship day one on Steam, because if they are trying to actually grow their PC market share and get organic support, launching day and date on Steam is not really it's not gonna move the needle for the Xbox PC platform. But if they can lean into play first on Xbox, and you get to play these games, whether it's on the Xbox PC app or the Xbox console, the Xbox platform gets this thing first. And you do that every single time. And you are putting out 10 really good games every single year. Yeah, I think that kind of messaging goes a long way. Because I do wonder if we've talked about incidental exclusives before, where this is an exclusive just because like we don't have the bandwidth to port it elsewhere.
Yeah.
So therefore it is an exclusive, but I do wonder if they will ever have like a hard forever exclusive policy now, given their I guess recent pivots. Do you think they would really truly go back to a forever exclusive at this stage?
It's really hard to say. I think it's honestly, for me, it's kind of true that I don't think Steam wants to play nice with Xbox. And I think a lot of Microsoft's moves are helping Steam to hurt Windows, you know. And I think it would probably, given the amount of IP that Microsoft has, it would probably behoove Microsoft to actually, you know, and I know Steam people are not going to like this, but I'm just speaking analytically from like the perspective of what's, you know, good, right for Microsoft's business and frankly longevity in this space. It's probably the play is to pull the games off Steam. It's probably the play to pull the games off Steam even before they pull the games off. Honestly, before they pull the games off PlayStation, in my view, because at least they don't have the excuse of, oh, I've got no hardware to sell, because everyone's already got a PC. You know, you've already got that tool in your armament, in your armory, essentially, because, you know, every Windows PC has this shit pre-installed on it, you know. You've just got to give people a compelling reason to use it. And, you know, there is the performance delta, you know, it's not great today, but from what I've heard, there's a big overhaul for the Xbox app coming in the fall. So for me, it's like if the Xbox, I mean, the plan has to be that eventually the Xbox app on PC is at least comparable to Steam in quality. You know, you would imagine that's the plan. Like, you don't want to leave it languishing like this. If it is,
no, like you hear Asha talk about these, like she's really harking on the best in class social features, which makes me really feel like they're going to invest heavily in making sure that Xbox as a platform has all these draws outside of the games themselves. So when you play your favorite games on this platform, there are incentives. And that, in my eyes right now, like if you're not going to come out with an app that's on par, or it really needs to like exceed what Steam is doing, because Steam has such a dominant position on PC. Like, then what are we doing here? Why are you going to bother doing an Xbox PC store, knowing there's no timeline or world where you kind of passively even put a dent in Steam's market share?
Yeah, exactly. Exactamundo, buddy. I suppose
so
we'll see. Yeah. I suppose we'll see how it goes. You know, I absolutely want to see them take the fight back, not only to PlayStation. Like we talk a lot about PlayStation because, you know, it's the console, but really it's Steam, I think, that has a worrying potential to become a dominant monopoly, you know. And
they just have a clear runway right now. Like Epic tried, I would say try, but they didn't really invest in the social features, and the platform is still lacking in a lot of ways compared to Steam. So they haven't carved out enough of a market share, and so Steam's just gobbling up all that revenue, baby.
Like gobbling it all up, man. I agree. And more crucially, I suppose, gobbling up the user base. I mean, the variety gaming audience just exists on Steam now. I don't know.
Nobody wants fragmented libraries. So as soon as someone starts buying a bunch of games on Steam, guess what? That's where they're buying all their games. Goodbye, Xbox future sales. Like that's
Indeed.
Indeed.
And I think as well, like bringing games exclusively to Windows on Windows PC or Xbox PC rather, it kind of incentivizes Microsoft to maintain the quality of that shit. You know, if nobody's using Windows for gaming, then what's the point in investing in the quality of it, I suppose. But at the same time, it's kind of like Valve puts all their profits back into the community, whereas Microsoft sends a bunch of their profits to shareholders, which is, you know, one of the big problems with corporate America and, you know, well, the corporate West, I suppose you should say, or just corporations in general. I don't know. Let's not get philosophical again. Next question is from Logan Meyer, who says, "Hi guys, hope all is well. I was wondering if you had heard anything specific regard to the Xbox 25th anniversary celebrations. Like, will they do anniversary stuff at the June show all year in November?" I haven't heard a ton about it, but one thing I can say is that Microsoft themselves has confirmed that there will be 25th anniversary events throughout the year in different locations. So they are doing stuff for the 25th anniversary, but there's also, you know, also a kind of, you know, they've got the BlizzCon event, and they've also got the showcase, so there'll be stuff there too. But yeah, like, I do think we can expect quite a lot of stuff, a lot of global stuff actually, in their plans. I just don't know what exactly they look like as of right now. But as soon as I know, you will know, matey boy. So stay tuned for that shit.
Based on the way that they've been messaging this year and the way that they've been communicating, like this anniversary, the Xbox platform, the return to Xbox, the Xbox emails, even if it isn't done right now, I can pretty much guarantee that there is a team working behind the scenes to have some headlining feature or moments for the 25th anniversary relating to the console.
I really like the idea of them doing something with backwards compatibility, and that is the big rumor right now, and that's the one they've been teasing and hinting at, and the one they refuse to squash. So fingers crossed. Next up, we've got Murray, who says, "Hi, Rand and Jez. In my opinion, if they go forward with the timed exclusive, they should treat the Steam store the same as PlayStation. If games are timed exclusive, they should not say it up front. Let the FOMO kick in. Also, the timed exclusive frame should not be consistent, so people don't get used to say, let's wait 6 months and they get their store platform. How would you handle timed exclusivity?" I actually agree with that. Like, I think, you know, it's not the Phil way of doing things. Like, Phil would be like, "Oh, this is too mean, you know, and this is too anti-consumer." But, you know, Asher's a Meta executive, and as I was mentioning earlier, Meta is evil. So, I'm not saying Asher is evil, by the way, but I'm saying they're cutthroat, and they do what it takes to win, you know. So I kind of feel like if Ash is from that world, you know, the Instacart world, and Instacart was also built on a kind of exclusivity, in a lot of ways, for better or worse. I do think Ash's instincts is about exclusivity and having like exclusive stuff and creating a platform where people can expect to have exclusive content. I do think Asher is from that world. So yeah, honestly, I would handle it, because I am also evil. I would handle it the way you've described, but because I do think a formulaic 6-month thing is just going to train people to wait, you know, and wait a specific amount of time. If it's like random and chaotic, I think some people, the FOMO does kick in a little bit more strongly. And I do think Phil was just too nice for that. You know, Phil was just like, this is anti-consumer, it's hostile, and it's mean to publishers and developers, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Satya said in the FTC trial, he said, "Let us have competition." And I honestly think that's probably the way you do competition, isn't it? Unfortunately.
Yeah, from like a customer standpoint, we want these companies to be as transparent as possible so we can make informed decisions about every purchase we make. But from a platform growth standpoint, the meaner they are about that to other platforms and publishers, the better their chances of growth are, I would say. So I wouldn't be opposed if they said like at least a year, and then after a year, it's just kind of random timing, but solidifying that, you're waiting at least a year.
I do think some people just want full permanent exclusivity. I don't think that's smart at all, because I think there is always
trying to grow IP.
Yeah, there's always a point where the game won't sell anymore. So why not just put it on other platforms for a bit of extra cash? Like it's low hanging fruit. It makes no sense to gatekeep it at that point, in my view. But Sony and Nintendo clearly don't feel the same way about that. But I also think like there's no real reason to do it from a business perspective, But we'll see what happens. I do genuinely think Ash's instincts do point towards exclusivity, but it's just like in the short term, there's no stock to sell. Unfortunately, that's the reality of it. So I think exclusivity in my view, exclusivity comes back properly when the memory route is over, probably in 2027, late 27, 28. Unless something changes, maybe the whole AI industry collapses overnight, and then things can go semi back to normal, But hey ho. Next question is from Sick and Tired. Hi blokes, hope you had a good week. I find one thing a bit confusing when we talk about Microsoft and console sales numbers. In the Xbox One era, Microsoft made the decision that both Xbox and Windows PC were their platforms. They went day and date on PC, when previously the games were exclusive to Xbox. That absolutely reduced Xbox sales, as PC players didn't have to double dip, reducing Xbox One versus 360. However, people compared the Xbox sales with PlayStation to push the narrative that Microsoft has less customers to sell games to than Sony. When you combine the two platforms that Microsoft supports, Xbox and PC, Microsoft has a far bigger user base to sell games onto than Sony does. PlayStation 5 might be 100 million, but Xbox and Steam alone combined are over 170 million. So Xbox should never be compared to PlayStation sales wars to judge Xbox users and their customers. With Sony now reversing that push to put games on PC, they have a smaller base than Microsoft does. It also annoys me that Microsoft wasn't happy with that and started to pimp their games with PlayStation as well. It was greed in my eyes. What say ye? I think the reality is, like I mentioned earlier in the show, that I've seen documentation which gave me a better insight into the financials about some of this stuff. Steam takes a pretty chunky cut when games are sold on that platform. And also, like, more users doesn't necessarily translate into intent. So while, like, you can say, like, on paper, yeah, we've got all these millions of billions of monthly active users, that doesn't necessarily mean those users are buying the games at the clip that you want them to. And we saw this play out with in some ways with Helldivers, because Helldivers, Sony famously put Helldivers on Xbox, and people were kind of shocked about that. And it's like, well, hang on a sec, why are you doing this when PlayStation has all these users, and is the Xbox user base is so small, and all these kind of narratives about Xbox's user base, which you alluded to just now, but the purchasing intent of Xbox users is disproportionately high. The people that are left on Xbox are the hardcore. All the casual users moved on to PlayStation, and they just play Fortnite all day, if we want to be stereotypical about it. So I do think, like, just raw users isn't the complete picture. But I also agree with you that Microsoft could have managed its platform aspirations a little bit better. Like, for me, the play should have been put the games on Microsoft Store and not put them on Steam at all. But the Microsoft Store was just not ready. It wasn't designed for games. It was designed for apps, and it's kind of a holdover of Microsoft's corporate structure, where Windows was separate and non-collaborative with Xbox. There's all those memes of, like, Microsoft orgs pointing guns at each other, and that's a real thing. That's pretty much what happened. The Microsoft orgs were not collaborating with each other, and they are now, but it's kind of like we're not at a point yet where we can say that putting games on Microsoft Store will automatically translate into purchase intent. You know, that's kind of like where I'm at with that. I don't know if you've got anything you want to add there, Miles, on top of that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of touched on a lot of our thoughts regarding the PC platform and growth.
Yeah.
And I think once they kind of figure out what the new era of the Xbox platform is and really truly unify everything, I think that at that point, it makes the most sense to encourage people to buy on Xbox PC versus Steam.
Mm. Yeah, true that. True that. Okay, next up we've got Governor Grimm. Jez, you previously mentioned that people inside Xbox said that going multi-platform wouldn't change anything because people weren't going to abandon their digital libraries. Now all of a sudden they realize they want to sell hardware. What can they do to turn it around? They don't have consoles on hand to sell, and GTA is around the corner. What would you do to bring people back? I mean, this is honestly the big issue. They don't have hardware to sell, so they're kind of in a catch-22 kind of situation, I want to say right now. Can they just automatically fix it? The answer is probably no. I think it's going to take a hot minute. I don't think there's anything they can do, like, in the short term. I think in the short term, they just need to try and get the stock they can, however means necessary. And I was told that Microsoft has teams working round the clock to source memory for this shit, for Xbox specifically. So I suppose that's all they can do right now, and the rest of it is they'll just have to wait, I suppose. They'll have to wait until we get back to a point where there is memory and there is stuff to sell again. I don't know.
Yeah, it's exciting that they're spending all this time to invest in the platform updates. So theoretically, if they, once that pipeline stabilizes for hardware, they can bang the drum on how great this operating system is, how great the console experience is, showcase how they're investing in it. And it's very unlikely, given the fact that the memory situation is what it is. But if they want to truly commit to console and move units, they're going to have to figure out a way to get that price down. And I know you've talked about how they don't want to take a loss on console sales anymore. I think that's fine, but also kind of ignores the fact that that's what that hardware device is you eat it up front and then you get them to buy things on the other side. Otherwise you're not getting anyone in the door, but who knows?
Well, bro, like, I alluded to the fact that I've seen documents recently, like, if you knew how much they're currently losing on every sale, you might feel differently about
again,
losing like, a lot of money on each console sold right now. Because of the memory.
They got to balance those books, and the cost of memory is not cheap. And even Nintendo said with their $50 price increase that doesn't cover it. Like, we're just hoping you buy games.
Yeah, it's wild, man. It's a tough time. I suppose like cloud will help to some degree because like I say, cloud costs money too, and I think they're close to being capacity with cloud, but I also think, there is this sort of, there is a universe where they can sort of, I don't know, hopefully just do some, they're Microsoft, they're a huge company, they've got a ton of leverage. I want to believe that there is a universe where they can be like, throw their weight around a bit to, leapfrog some of these other companies with regards to access to memory. But it's also a real issue. It's a real pickle, I suppose. They can't just magic it,
No, and again, like, we would love them to just lose. For us, it doesn't matter if they lose $300 per console for us sold, like, as the customer. So we don't really have to care about that, but I understand a business necessity to try to minimize the loss.
Yeah, it's tough time, man. Next question is from Seawoody. Jez, you recently said on Twitter to not expect any change on exclusivity policy until the memory shortage stops. Is this personal analysis or something you've heard? I thought Gears E-Day would have been the perfect pivot point for Xbox to prove its customers that it's still worth investing in. Regardless of it, they've been developing E-Day for PS5 or not. They're willing to hold it back now and eat short-term loss for a long-term plan. I'm not sure I have any faith left in them to make any meaningful changes. It's arguably already too late, so I think it has to be now or never. I do agree with you that it would be a gesture, I suppose, for that to be exclusive. I suppose it really depends ultimately on where it is in its development. Is it ready for PS5 now? Because, to be fair, they've announced PS5 versions of other games that are coming to PlayStation 5. They've announced them already because presumably they're in development ready. Like, why have they never announced PlayStation 5 version of Gears? You know, to me, it kind of suggests that, oh, actually, maybe it is exclusive, but maybe incidentally exclusive. I think it could be that they didn't have the dev kits, because one of the issues with the memory shortage is that there's no dev kits either. So, you know, it could be that they didn't have PlayStation 5 dev kits and they've never really had the opportunity to develop a PlayStation 5. It could be like an incidental kind of thing there. Or obviously they do have some dev kits because, you know, they do the Gears of War Reloaded, but it could just be that like Gears of War Reloaded was such a flop in essence that they were kind of like, okay, well, this is probably not worth the squeeze, as Randolph 419 would say. So yeah, I don't know. I suppose we'll find out together very soon if it is or isn't coming to PlayStation 5. Personally, I agree with you, C. Woody. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. I think it would be a good gesture, and it would be an opportunity to be like, this is the start of how we mean to go on, kind of thing, right? Maybe. But at the same time, it is financially complicated for them right now. But I do genuinely think the exclusives will come back, because I just think Asher is from that world, man. I just think she's from that world. Right, we've got...
It seems like they're trying, like right now, they're really investing in how do we reignite that energy? How do we get people looking and talking about Xbox again in a positive way? So yeah, like they allude to, I think the timing is critical with the 25th anniversary. And like I said, with them coming out of the gate so early in the year, making the leadership change, which I think we all feel probably was planned originally to come a little bit later, I think they understand that they had to get all this messaging and momentum established ahead of the June showcase and ahead of the anniversary, because otherwise those things would have came, and I mean, a lot of people would have been like disappointed, by the state, or wouldn't even have tuned in because they've already written Xbox off. So I think, yeah, I think there is a possibility for an announcement of that scale to be at the June show.
Yeah, I suppose we'll see. Next up, we've got we've got Frosty next. Oh, we got 5 more to go. Frosty says, hey guys, I noticed the verbiage for the pause of development of Copilot on mobile, and consoles didn't mention the Xbox app for PC. Does that technically mean Copilot will still be in the play for Helix PC console hybrid machine if it's essentially running Windows? And Jez, I don't think Asher does roll this back without Satya's blessing. What are the chances Copilot is going to see a rebrand in general? So I will say this, I've heard that you are right, that Copilot for PC is still a thing. And I do think I think that's kind of where they see the value, because people do use AI and they use it on PC, and they're not going to necessarily have the inputs to use it on console. You know, to use it on console, you either need a microphone or you need a keyboard, and the vast majority of users do not have those present on their systems. So yeah, I don't think I don't think we'll see Copilot on console, but I do think Copilot on PC is still a thing that will happen. And I suppose it'll be interesting to see how it's rebranded, how it's repositioned, and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't think Copilot on PCs, gaming Copilot on PCs, going away. But at the same time, I've heard that there's pretty much nobody working on it. It's a very, very low budget. There's just a very, very small team exploring it. It's kind of an experiment. Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see. Next up, we've got Chris M. Hey guys, hope it's going well tonight. Given the reports that Sony's reporting 765 million impairment loss due to the underperformance of Bungie, this is actually feeding into Sony's views about largely going back exclusive. Bungie's games have been multiplied the entire time, and it doesn't seem to have benefited them. So you could argue Sony could point to that and simply believe that they'd be better off using Bungie to make exclusive games that could have helped push more consoles. How much trouble are these Sony companies in, as it seems Bungie could be in a lot of trouble, and do we really feel like Housemarque is safe? Always enjoy the show, guys. Hope you guys have a great weekend. So, yeah, the impairment charge is kind of like, it's you know, to be clear, like, impairment charges are, from what I understand, an American auditing accounting law. So really, this isn't like, a lot of people took it like, oh, Bungie's cost them this much money. That's not necessarily what it means. Like, they invested in acquiring Bungie, you know, and they report the value of that investment to their shareholders, and they've had to be transparent and be like, actually, we got the value of this asset incorrect to the tune of this much money, right? Microsoft reported an impairment charge against Xbox in January for a mysterious unknown thing. And a lot of people assumed it was ABK, but I was told pretty emphatically that it wasn't ABK, but actually like some kind of investment in a third-party exclusive which was cancelled. So that could have been contraband or something like that. And that the value of that developer, the value of the investment in the development was basically written off. And that was what that impairment charge was. But yeah, so Sony subsidiary is in trouble. I mean, it's kind of a conundrum because Sony's having the same issue where they can't manufacture enough consoles to meet demand, which is why they're warning investors that console sales for them could be down this year because they've either got to buy RAM at an absolutely exorbitant price, which they know they won't help them shift consoles because it'll be too expensive, or they've failed to procure the RAM, like. Or the memory. It's not necessarily just RAM either. It's, storage memory, which is why, like, one way Sony tried to reduce their costs and keep the price of the console down was to reduce the amount of memory that actually comes with the PlayStation and, have users be responsible for finding their own memory, which is, honestly a better way of doing it than what Xbox did, arguably, probably. But, is Bungie and Housemarque safe? I honestly don't know, man. I think it's really tough because I think for Bungie to get back to their heights, they need investment, they need money. And that's the bit of the equation that Sony doesn't really want to entertain right now, I want to say. It's a really tough situation, and I don't like commenting on this kind of thing usually because it's people's jobs and it just really sucks. Like the layoffs suck and all that kind of thing. But Bungie was Microsoft passed on acquiring Bungie. Like we know this like from my leaks, but also now the FTC trial. Microsoft passed on acquiring Bungie because the auditors decided like their business model was not healthy. Like they decided that Bungie, you guys are really expensive actually, and the juice isn't worth the squeeze. That's going to be a new podcast saying.
A hot new XB2 catchphrase.
Catchphrase, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And I do think, like, unfortunately, I think that's kind of the situation Bungie kind of finds itself in. Like, they were too expensive, and Activision knew it. And that's why Activision cut ties. Microsoft knew it. That's why they didn't acquire Sony somehow didn't know it, and now they're kind of left holding the bag, unfortunately. Destiny is on its knees, and Marathon doesn't seem to be doing too well. But I do think Marathon could be something that ends up, being something that can keep the studio going in the interim. And I would hope that PlayStation has the gumption to invest in a Destiny 3, because that's really what I feel like the community over there really wants out of it. But yeah, I don't know.
You want to hope these teams are in a position where, they don't put out one game that isn't a massive blockbuster, and then that's it. They're done. Their legacy's axed, teams shut down. Because I think, anyone who's investing in video games right now, hopefully is aware of the risks associated with paying for a game.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a situation where clearly PlayStation has had a lot of games that they spent money on, invested in, that they decided not to ship, which is fine. I just hope in the case of like a Bungie Housemarque that, their game's only selling a couple million copies only isn't like, well, sorry, we're going to take you out back old Yeller style because we got to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, it's really sucks, man, what's going on in the industry. But at the end of the day, like, where do you find the new users, I guess? That's the whole struggle right now. Everything's so diluted. And AI is only going to make it worse, because over time, I think there'll be even more ways to reach audiences, and people will be able to make their own apps, and there'll be more content than ever, more games than ever. And the era of like having a business that can address massive audiences is becoming increasingly difficult. We're seeing it in gaming, we're seeing it in Hollywood, we're seeing it in publishing, and unfortunately, like, a lot of these big tech companies have realized the only way that they can stay profitable in this universe is to be the landlord, the digital landlord, will provide the cloud that everyone else builds the content on. Microsoft's share price grew massively by pivoting into that universe. But it's kind of funny that despite being at the forefront of that build out, they also, mismanaged some of their other businesses which were going to be impacted by that, But it is what it is. There's the other catchphrase. It is what it is. Right, we got another question from Goggles Lens, but I want to ask you something, Miles, on that note. Because you are a company that, like you say, makes you're strong in a niche. Do you think, like, do you think Microsoft should go more in that direction? Like, should they, instead of trying to, like, build out these massive kind of platforms, do you think they could be happier with a smaller Xbox and just be like, well, it's fine for us to have a niche and cater to our smaller audience? Or do you think Microsoft is just going to be one of these companies where it's like, if we can't be the biggest, then we're just going to exit? Because that's the fear for a lot of people with the way Xbox is going.
Yeah, I want to believe that the hope is not to be the biggest per se, but to have a strong, healthy business. I think that really should be the goal. And with these major companies, like, who are a little more beholden to investors, like, I think that's challenging to communicate that, oh, we just want to have a healthy, successful business. But everyone wants to see the numbers go up infinitely and forever. And that's business. That's corporate America, baby. But that being said, if you can become more profitable, like, I'll use Nintendo as a direct comparison. Nintendo is not, in a lot of ways, like, the biggest company in the gaming space. Like, when we look at revenue, when we look at what they're doing, that being said, their development pipeline is very healthy. They're very profitable, and they have found a way to, like, embrace these niches to create massive IP. They have some of the biggest IP, and then they're really clever with their IP, and they're like, oh, people love Mario, people love Pokemon, we're going to make theme parks, we're going to make movies. And so they're, like, leveraging that while also having a very profitable, stable business. And so I think, PlayStation and Xbox are busy fighting with each other about who can be the biggest, while ignoring like a competitor who has proven that you don't have to make the biggest, most expensive games to sell 20, 30 million copies of a game. Imagine a world like Xbox and PlayStation would probably literally kill people to sell 30 million copies of a first party game. And they just aren't going to, because they're in this world of like trying to chase, that ever unattainable
Infinite.
end of the rainbow of the monthly active user rainbow.
Monthly active user rainbow. The Fortnite rainbow. But even Fortnite's in decline right now. And Mercury Stream, Nintendo's one of Nintendo's Metroid studios, they just announced layoffs as well. Like even Nintendo's.
Yeah, that came from poor performance from Blades of Fire, I believe.
What is Blades of Fire? Exactly.
That was their game that came out after. That was the multi-platform title.
Well, why didn't they make another Metroid Dread? Metroid Dread was great.
I bet they are working on another Metroid now.
I hope so. Because, oh man, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna buy a Switch, man.
Dude, about damn time, dude.
Donataku, that's his name. He's gonna troll me for this.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yep.
Yeah, Donataku.
Deservedly. You deserve to be trolled.
Yeah, I deserve to be trolled. Yeah. Goggles Lens says, "Hi guys, bear with me. There is a quote in this one. So, someone on Twitter was commenting on Psychonauts 1 remake. Here is the convocation. The Mother Lobe. They wanted begging Double Fine for a Psychonauts 1 remake, if no P3 anytime soon. I love 1. It would be amazing with the graphics of 2, especially since so many resources from 2, character models, act, that could be reused to make development easier. Double Fine. Day one of acknowledging that we agree. This would indeed be amazing. We'd love to do it one day. Now, on paper, the words being said are not important because all that is being said is that maybe one day. I was originally not going to mention it because it does not mean much. But in the context of Microsoft being Double Fine being over on Microsoft, this could be interesting. But someone at Double Fine have to go and ask Microsoft if they could post this tweet. This is a Double Fine account after all. Or was it because so little was said that higher-ups were not involved? With the potential of Microsoft approving this tweet makes it much more big deal than the words being said. Am I looking too much into it? What do you guys think about it? That's interesting. I think that some of the subsidiaries, some of Microsoft's like satellite subsidiaries, do seem to have more independent control over their social media presence. Like if you look at InXL, for example, InXL puts out some very fun tweets, and I can't. Yes, they do.
Those are not sanctioned by Microsoft. Like those are not getting signed off by Microsoft.
Yeah, I can't see Microsoft signing off on some of the things that InXR puts out. So I think because they're subsidiaries and they're not necessarily like directly against the Xbox brand, and I think because Double Fine has its own community, I do think that Double Fine was probably saying that off the cuff without Microsoft's approval. That being said, I do think one day could mean one day soon for Double Fine, to be honest. I do know this, that Double Fine is working on a much bigger game than Kiln, a much more ambitious game than Kiln. And Kiln was just kind of like, it was kind of like a Crave project where they could flex their muscles, learn new tools, learn some of the new things like network multiplayer stuff and that kind of thing, and integrate some of the technology therein that will facilitate asymmetrical multiplayer features, right? So, Kiln is a fun little game, and it's a shame it didn't do better, but, at the same time, it's kind of like, I think they knew full well it wasn't going to blow up the world, or do like spectacularly super duper well. I don't think they had huge ambitions for that game, but the next game, I'm told, is a lot more ambitious, so it'd be interesting to see what turns out from that. But I do think like Psychonauts 1 remake with the current graphics, which are fantastic, by the way. Psychonauts 2 has amazing graphics, and I think that'd be low-hanging fruit for me. Like, Miles, you a Psychonauts guy? You into Psychonauts?
I mean, yeah, we're in this timeline right now where remakes are very safe, and they're a way to try to reintroduce these established franchises to a new audience. So it's like a safe, low-cost project that delivers on fan service for established fans, redrums up excitement in the IP, and then serves it to a new audience and maintains that it's playable on current platforms. So I think that would be pretty cool. I think that would be something that wouldn't require too much work, considering the size of Double Fine and the fact that they are kind of usually working on multiple projects simultaneously. I do wonder if they would even be interested in actually doing it themselves, though, or if that's something that would be passed off to another team to get the remake treatment.
Double 11 strikes me as a studio that could build that out. Double 11's a very good studio. Right, we're down to the wire. 2 more to go. 2 more questions to go. And then we can get Miles. Oh no, there's 3, sorry. And then we can get Miles out of here. So Shay Elephant. Oh, by the way, Miles, you don't have to stay. If you do have to get back to work, just let me know. I really appreciate you, though, dude.
Oh yeah, all good, dude.
Shay Elephant. These ones are pretty short though. Shay Elephant says, "Hi, Ranagers. In last week's show, you mentioned that Forza Horizon has always been created with Game Pass in mind, and that's why it won't get pulled away from the day one Game Pass offering like Call of Duty. What's the differences, and why can't Call of Duty be created like that? Thank you for the good show as always." It's ultimately because Call of Duty had a long-established business model of how much of their profitability gets reinvested back into the game. Call of Duty is also developed in a very expensive place, California, or at least in part. It's developed all over the world, but a lot of Activision studios are on the West Coast, which is very, 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 very expensive. Whereas Forza Horizon is developed in Britain, which is orders of magnitude less expensive because you don't have to pay your employees' healthcare for one thing. But that's just one reason amongst many why a lot of developers prefer these days to build games in Europe where they don't have to pay for healthcare and insurances and all the kind of things in order to be competitive in the hiring process. So Forza Horizon has P&L is long established with Game Pass in mind, whereas Call of Duty never did. Call of Duty it really disrupted Call of Duty's business model from what I've been told, and became it just ended up in a situation where it was just this isn't viable for Game Pass. The amount we have to extract from Game Pass to offset the retail losses isn't worth it. It was kind of a Hail Mary, a bit of an experiment, and it just ultimately didn't pan out. The only way to even vaguely make it work was to put the price by 50%, which pushed people to unsubscribe. So, it just was not a good business decision, unfortunately. It was just kind of we've got to try this, I suppose. And it just didn't work out for better or worse. But I don't think I've been told that you shouldn't expect any other franchises to be pulled out, which is obviously a good thing. We don't want to see any other franchises pulled out. But you never know what might happen. It's a volatile business, and Microsoft has a lot of things they need to fix at the moment to deliver, that beautiful returns to shareholders. And it's a big question mark about whether or not they can do some of that shit, I guess. We'll just have to wait and see how it goes. But at least for now, I've been told not to expect any other major franchises to be pulled out of Game Pass. But, we never know. We never know for sure where some of this shit will go, Next up, we've got good old Collingwood. Hello, Miles and Jez. 007 First Light isn't too far away, so what is your favourite James Bond story, be it book, movie, or game? Oh, this might be one for Miles. Are you... Because you're a movie buff, but are you a James Bond buff?
I'm going to get ripped for this one, dude. I'm going to get just ripped.
Oh, dear.
I just don't really have that much of a connection to James Bond. I've seen... I've seen Casino Royale. I've seen the Daniel Craig trilogy, and I've seen a few of the Pierce Brosnan movies, but that's about it. So I'm not the world's foremost expert on James Bond and 007. So I hope you can find it in your heart to one day forgive me.
But which of those was your favorite though, if any? Did you like them at least, the ones you did see?
Yes, yeah. I mean, they're fun. They're definitely really fun. Um, what was the middle Daniel Craig one after Casino Royale?
See, now I'm going to get ripped because I haven't seen the Daniel Craig James Bond movie.
Oh no,
I haven't seen any of them.
Oh brother,
I've seen.
We're getting ripped in the comments right
Yeah,
now.
and I'm British, so I kind of expose myself.
Yeah, like you. Yeah, as an American, I can play dumb. You know, I can just like duh. I don't watch that British shit.
Oh, it's American.
Oh, Skyfall ruled. I love Skyfall.
Skyfall. I see. Yeah, I'm more of a classic James Bond kind of guy. So going all the way back to Sean Connery, Dr. No, and even like some of the middle era ones like Live and Let Die. Live and Let Die was the first one I saw. And it was also my first exposure to Guns N' Roses.
Oh hell
yes. I absolutely love that movie. I just remember it's Roger. Hopefully I'm not wrong. It's Roger Moore, I think. Is it Roger Moore? And he's like running across a bridge made of crocodiles. It's a very, very surreal memory.
Dude, I haven't seen this. Yeah, I have no idea what this is.
Yeah, he runs over like there's like he's got to cross a river to get somewhere, and it's like he jumps across the crocodiles' backs, man.
Dude, some Donkey Kong Country shit right there.
Yeah, kind of. But it's a fun movie, But GoldenEye, I suppose, as a kid. I have a weird story about GoldenEye. Like, I can't remember the actor's name, but the hacker guy in GoldenEye, he's always spinning a pen in all of his scenes, and it's actually what gets him killed. Because James Bond, 30-year-old spoiler here, but James Bond swaps out his pen that he always spins as a habit with a pen that's loaded with C4 or something like that. So like he's spinning his pen, he clicks the button, he blows up. It's crazy. But I learned to spin my pen like that because of the guy in that thing, and because I was one of the only kids at school who had a PC and the internet. And I could touch type. Like I used to get bullied for it. It's like, oh god, you've got an email, what a nerd, kind of thing. And so kids used to say I was a hacker and stuff just because I had a computer. So I was like, I leaned into that. Bearing in mind, I'm like 10 years old at this point. So I learned to spin the pen around because of the hacker in James Bond GoldenEye, which is also a pretty fantastic movie with Pierce Brosnan, which I'm pretty fond of. I do need to see the Daniel Craig ones, and there was a point where all the James Bond movies were available on Netflix for a little time, like they licensed them. I don't know if they're still there. I've been trying to persuade my girlfriend to watch them, but she won't watch any movie that's older than 5 years old. So we'll see what happens with that. But
that limits some possibilities.
That is true. I am quite looking forward to 007, the game, though. It's like kind of like it's going to be almost its own universe. It's like when James Bond was a younger agent, and he's kind of green and doesn't. We haven't really seen James Bond like that in the movies, as far as I'm aware. Like a much younger James Bond, a much greener James Bond. It's always like quite an at least the ones I've seen. He's quite an established James Bond, where he's not he's not green. He's not a rookie. He's been around. He's been around the bush a bit. He knows how to kill a dude with a pencil.
He's always like 38 to 50 in the movies.
Yeah, something like that. But now we're getting a much younger agent Bond, so I'm intrigued about that. And also, IO Interactive kind of doesn't miss, although we'll overlook publishing Mind's Eye for the time being. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So hopefully, I'm going to get to review that. So if I do, stay tuned for some gameplay footage on Xbox 2 podcast. And now we're to our final, very short question from new member Sharky, who says, anything you can say on the Elite Controller 3? I actually don't know a sliver of information about the Elite Controller 3, other than the fact that it exists and it is coming, and hopefully coming soon. If that's something we might see announced at the showcase this year, and that's just a prediction based on, you know, the sort of teases that I've been receiving from people in the know. I don't know for sure if it will be there, but it could be something they save for Helix. But given the fact that, you know, Steam's been making waves with its controller, a lot of hype around the Steam controller right now, I think Microsoft could do a little bit more there to, because Microsoft was the de facto PC gaming controller for a long time, but people are looking for something a little bit more premium now, but also at the same time, on PC at least, not too premium. And I don't think the Xbox Elite controller really serves that cohort very well, because it's designed for Xbox at the end of the day. It is designed for Xbox, not necessarily for PC. There's a lot more they could do with the PC side of things. And I suppose if Helix is a PC, then bridging that gap has to be within the purview, I would imagine, right? But yeah,
so Jez, over under on that thing coming this year.
I'm gonna guess yes, and it's purely a guess. I'm gonna guess that we do get the new Xbox Elite controller this year at some point. That's my guess.
Will it be $250?
I'm gonna guess that there'll be two versions. There'll be a version with a dock, and there'll be a version without a dock. I'm also going to predict that it'll be compatible with the current dock, meaning if you already have a dock, you won't have to buy a new one, because one of Microsoft's things right now is sustainability, and having a dock that already exists is a way to save a bit of money on materials and that kind of thing. So that's my prediction. 2 SKUs, Elite Controller 3 Core, that's cheaper, Elite Controller 3 Super Duper, that has a dock and all the bits and pieces with it, and we'll see that hopefully this year.
My wallet is ready, Jess.
Mine too, buddy. Mine too. But yeah, I think that is everything. So, Miles, I want to thank you so much from the depths of my heart for being here with me today. Let the good people know where they can find you on the internet.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, man. Like I talked about earlier in the show, I do miss the podcast world, the podcast circuit. So any chance to jump on here and chop it up with you, I'm always down. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm just pretty much at Miles Dompier on any of the social platforms. I do try to, my posts nowadays are pretty much just the games I like that I'm having fun with, because I think it's just easier that way. And that's more what I want to talk about, is what's making people happy. So if you want to hit me up, man, I'm there. And then, yeah, support your local indie dev. Go buy some ILLFONIC games.
Yeah, definitely. Go check out ILLFONIC's games. Are any of them on Game Pass, by the way? I think some.
No, we don't have any games on Game Pass. We had Predator Hunting Grounds as part of the Xbox Game Pass free play days last weekend. Pretty recently.
Yeah, right. That's cool. Oh yeah, I remember that actually. Yeah. But yeah, if go and check out their games. Miles, hit me up about doing some stuff for Halloween. We'll definitely feature that. We've got a little bit of budget for video right now, so we're doing experiments in the Google. They call it Google Zero, by the way, the universe room right now. And this universe where Google no longer sends traffic to websites. So we operate in the business as if Google doesn't exist. So one of the experiments they're in is that we've got a little bit of budget for video, and you might have seen some of the indie videos that I've been showcasing on Twitter and stuff like that. So if you guys want to be a part of that, please hit me up, dude.
Oh, for sure, dude.
Yeah, man. But yeah, that's going to be the show. Thanks so much to everyone who checked us out. Sorry for the disruption on Xbox 2 at the moment. Like I say, Rand's kind of going through it. So best wishes for Rand and Rand's family right now. And hopefully me and Rand will be back as normal this Friday with a regular Xbox 2 show. Until then, keep it gaming, as Rand likes to say. And we will see you next time. Peace out.
Peace.